From the headquarters of the Guild of Champions, this is the Chris Terrell Podcast, and I am your host, Chris Terrell, and welcome to another week of your weight loss quest. How did this last week go for you, champion? What new challenges did you encounter? And what failure did you go through, by the way? I'd love to hear about that, but what I really would love to hear about is the lesson that you got from that failure. Come on now, don't let a perfectly good failure go by without you getting your lesson. Now, if you're new here, I've lost 125 pounds myself after an entire adulthood of chronic yo-yo dieting. Up, down again, before I finally got sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I made some permanent, meaningful, and actual changes to my lifestyle, to my habits, to my routines, to my environment, community, and to my system of beliefs. Because it's all of those things that created me, and if I was going to become something different, I was going to need to go back and change those things. And I did. And when I changed those 6 things, my life started to change as well. Lots of different ways. Many of them were ways I hoped that it would change. And many of them were in ways that I never imagined was possible. Never imagined. I mean, just consider for a moment, right now, one of you listening, you're 300 pounds. You've been battling your weight your whole life. You've been in a career you've been doing for 20 some odd years. You look around your life and you think, this is probably all it's going to be. It's just going to be varying degrees of this. But imagine if you from the future time traveled through a portal and said, hey, I just want to let you know in 5 years' time, you are going to be a weight loss coach full time with a guild of people, hundreds and hundreds of people in it. You literally will have just spent a morning making a collage full of before and after photos of 100-pound journeys. And you're the one that taught them all how to do it. And of course, if that were to happen to you, you might be like, that sounds nuts. That's crazy. There's no way that would happen. That is my life. I never imagined I'd be doing what I'm doing, and yet here I am. And if I look back over my life, I'll see that a lot of my life didn't go according to some plan. A lot of the things that I love the most about my life were unexpected. I didn't know they were coming. I've realized that needing to know the future is just my anxiety talking, I guess you could say. I don't actually want to know what's coming. Somebody once asked me years ago, because I was talking about how much I love my life, and they asked me right away, they said, if you could go back in time, what would you say to yourself to help yourself get here? And I sat there and I thought about it for a second, and I was like, I don't think I'd say anything. The person's like, really? I was like, yeah, actually, I don't think I'd say a thing, because I think if I said anything, I think I'd try to help. And I actually believe that my actively helping would just probably make it worse, make it where I wouldn't get what I wanted. Because the reality is I have so much of what I want, but I didn't work so hard for it. I mean, I worked hard. I put a lot of work in it. Don't get me wrong, but how to say this? I wasn't miserable. I wasn't agonizing over the fact that I wasn't done, right? Often, like when I would pursue a thing, I would be like withhold a certain degree of personal enjoyment, satisfaction, and inner peace until I obtained said goal. And then I would allow myself to be like, oh, I did it. Oh, great. I decided that I think I'm just going to go ahead and feel that way the whole time. And what was crazy is I enjoyed myself. I enjoyed the journey. And I tried not as hard. I didn't have my try hard pants on where I take everything so dang seriously. Like sometimes the reason why it's so hard for you to get past a failure is because you're just making a whole hoop-de-doo about nothing. Seriously, you're just starting a whole bunch of hubbub. You're just wanting to hear build this monument to your failure. Everybody look at how bad I did yesterday. We need to talk about this. Can we talk about how bad I did yesterday? Come on. I really don't want to forget that I was not good yesterday. It's like that doesn't help, right? You're just making a mountain out of a molehill. Just stop taking it so seriously, which is crazy because weight loss is in fact very, very, very serious. It's super serious and it's something you need to work on all the time. But you've got to find this place within you where it's important, but you don't act like the world ended because you had a binge last night. Seriously, it's your shame that's making it worse. Just ditch the shame. And of course, the moment you're going to go, I can't do that. If I ditch the shame, I might not come back again. If you're thinking that way, that lets me know that you still have the amateur mindset when it comes to weight loss. Several weeks ago, I published an episode where I talked about going pro. Now, a little about that. I was sick. I mean, sick. I wasn't even going to do a podcast. It came out a couple days late. I actually recorded 2 podcasts and I couldn't get through them. Like I did them and then I fell off. Like Friday I tried, Saturday I tried. I still have them. I look pitiful in them. But Sunday I was feeling better. I'm like, there's the resistance here. I have to get this episode out. I don't know why, but I feel like I must. And something I've observed is in my life, if there is a high degree of internal resistance or external resistance, like it seems like the universe is trying to stop me from doing something, I once used to believe that meant it was a sign I shouldn't. I now realize it's a sign that I have to. There was so much resistance. Finally, I had to just sit down. I was so tired. My brain wasn't completely clear. And I was like, just stop censoring yourself, man. Just sit down, hit record, and just speak the truth. Just talk about it. And so I did. And here's the crazy thing. As I did it, I felt, oh no, you can't say these things. You can't say these things. You're because in my head, I'm like, you're going to make the amateurs feel bad and you're going to make them feel demoralized and they're going to want to quit. And I was like, but that normal rhetoric would normally just be firing off in my head all the time. But this time I was so tired, like when it would fire off, I'd be like, I don't care. I don't have to publish it. Just say what you want to say. That's what I would just tell myself. Because I didn't have the energy to fuss with the voice. So I'd just be like, just go away. When I'd be talking and I'd say something and I'd hear the voice in my head say, oh, don't say it that way. Don't be that blunt. And then, of course, I would be like, just go away. I don't have time to deal with you. I got a podcast to make, right? And I'd get it and I'd put it out. And I called my wife and said, I am scared to post this episode. I'm scared to post this. It feels too blunt. It's the truth. I stand by every single word I said. It is the truth. I've lived it. I have had conversation after conversation after conversation after conversation after conversation with people one-on-one. You know, those conversations where people will say the things that you won't say with other people around. Yeah, we will talk about weight loss in a way that I am scared as shit to talk about on a public forum. There are truths about weight loss that I will not say because I'm worried about your reactions. I'm so worried that you will react poorly, so I withhold the truth. And I was so scared of that I almost couldn't publish it. And I had to call my wife, and she encouraged me, like, no, just believe in yourself, essentially the lesson I took away from our conversation. So I posted it. And then so many people called and said, Chris, that's what I needed to hear. I needed to hear that. Thank you. Chris, that hurt to hear it that way, but I needed to hear it. Chris, I know you weren't talking to me, but it felt like you were talking to me, and I needed to hear that. I'm shaking it loose. Chris, I'm turning pro. I'm going this is breaking my brain because here I am thinking I'm like doing something bad by posting this. And then I get all this positive feedback on it. And it's like, I think I need to pause and try to understand what happened here. And so I talked to several people that had listened to the podcast on the phone I've just made connections to different people over the years. And I just like, hey, what did you think? A lot of people that I go to for advice, at least by the way, any of you, if you're one of the people that I go to for advice, I want you to know, I don't want you to make me feel good. I want you to tell me the truth. Those of you that listen to the podcast that I talk to for advice, like you can tell me the truth. I want to hear it. I don't want you to be worried about my reaction so you'll stop from telling me the truth. Just like I sometimes feel that way with you, right? I think sometimes we avoid telling people the truth too much because we're too worried about reactions. And I think sometimes we rob ourselves of personal growth and development, having what we want, because we can't control ourselves when somebody tells us something we don't want to hear. Our ego takes over and we lash out. And sometimes I think it stops people from telling us the truth. Maybe that's just me. But I wanted to dive in this week into one of my absolute favorite personal development books. It's a little gem of a book by an author named Steven Pressfield. Here's what Esquire magazine said about it. A vital gem, a kick in the ass. Let me read the back here. I'm not telling you the title yet on purpose. In this powerful and straight from the hip examination of the internal obstacles to success, Best-selling author Steven Pressfield shows readers how to identify, defeat, and unlock the inner barriers to creativity. This book is an inspirational, funny, well-aimed kick in the pants, guaranteed to galvanize every would-be artist, visionary, or entrepreneur. Now, you might read this and be like, I don't know that this applies to my weight loss journey. But it does. But it does. Make no mistake about it. The body and life of your dreams waiting for you at the other end of your quest. This is an act of creation. You are creating the life you want to live. You're creating it. It doesn't exist until you create it. It doesn't exist somewhere out there. It only exists in your mind. And it won't exist in the real world until you get it out of your mind and make it exist in the real world so you can live in it. Living is creating. And some of you have been creating a drab, bleak, repetitive life. You've been doing the same thing year in, year out, year in, year out. Look back over your life. When was the last time you did something for the first time? When was the last time you shook things up? When was the last time you made a decision that said, this is about to alter how I live my life in a tangible way? When's the last time you did that? That's what this is going to take. Anyway, so the name of the book is The War of Art. The War of Art. You might have heard of the book, The Art of War. Brilliant book, but not the same thing. This is The War of Art. And it talks about resistance. Remember that feeling I was talking about earlier that I felt? Resistance. This resistance is a real power. The resistance has the power to stop any dream from coming into form. Your weight loss journey, if you don't complete it, it's going to be because of resistance. That's going to be what made it happen. Resistance. Now, you won't know it's resistance. Resistance is sneaky. In this book, there's a section that talks about turning pro. Now, the reason why I want to dive into this book is so it just seems like life is leading me here. So we're going here. I did a podcast where I felt a tremendous amount of resistance. And as I noticed the resistance, I thought to this book and I remembered turning pro. And I was applying that to myself as like a pro figures this out. And I thought, wait a minute, that's what I'm talking about with this podcast. You need to turn pro. Not be an amateur, you need to turn pro. I felt the resistance and used the techniques from this book to get the episode done. And then I took the techniques from this book and integrated them into that episode, but I didn't tell you I did that. And this week, I want to dive into the book that both helped me get through that episode, but also is a core tenet behind the concepts in that episode. In here, there is a section, it's called Book 2, Combating Resistance, Turning Pro. Turning Pro. Let me, you know what? I wasn't going to read this section, but let me read this section to you, okay? It's professionals and amateurs. Aspiring artists defeated by resistance share one trait. They all think like amateurs. They have not yet turned pro. The moment an artist turns pro is as epochal, I think that's the word, as the birth of his first child. With one stroke, everything changes. I can state absolutely that the term of my life can be divided into two parts, before turning pro and after. To be clear, when I say professional, I don't mean doctors and lawyers, those of the professions. I mean the professional as an ideal, the professional in contrast to the amateur. Consider the differences. The amateur plays for fun. The professional plays for keeps. To the amateur, the game is his avocation. To the pro, it's his vocation. The amateur plays part-time. The professional, full-time. The amateur is a weekend warrior. The professional is there 7 days a week. The word amateur comes from the Latin root meaning to love. The conventional interpretation is that the amateur pursues his calling out of love, while the pro does it for money. Not the way I see it. In my view, the amateur does not love the game enough. If he did, he would not pursue it as a sideline distinct from his real vocation. The professional loves it so much he dedicates his life to it. He commits full time. That's what I mean when I say turning pro. Resistant hates it when we turn pro. Turning pro is a mindset. Turning pro is not a destination. It is a moment where you flip a switch inside your head. Let me switch to another page here in the book. This is page 96. I highly encourage you go and get a copy of this book. But on page 96, this is the entire contents of this page, by the way. It's a super easy read. You can read this book in one sitting. So let me read you the entire contents of one single page. A professional is recognized by other professionals. The professional senses who has served his time and who hasn't. Like Alan Ladd and Jack Palance circling each other in Shane, a gun recognizes another gun. Let me tell you, I have been on my journey for 5 years. I can tell when you've turned pro. I am a weight loss coach and have been working with a lot of people and talked to a lot of people about weight loss. I can tell when you're a pro and I can tell when you're an amateur. And I can't put my finger on it. It's just sort of a feeling. As I begin to talk to you, there's little things you do. You just subtly talk about things in different ways. For example, an amateur is still talking about the scale in terms of days and weeks. If you're talking about the scale like, yo, yesterday I went down 2 pounds, I know you're an amateur. You ain't got it. You're a hack, right? You're still thinking in terms of days and weeks with the scale. Whereas a pro, they're talking in terms of months, always recognizing where they came from, right? Their time horizon got much bigger. And it just sort of subtly sneaks out, right? You could tell me, Chris, I think in months, not weeks. Oh, sure, we'll see. Let's have an hour and a half long conversation and we'll see the little stuff that sneaks out of your mouth. That'll let me know what you actually believe. And we'll see. If you want to know, journal about it. Just sit down and write for 30 minutes. Just free flow. Just write your thoughts. You'll see what you believe. But turning pro is a decision. And the author in this book knows this. Let me read to you what he wrote on page 101. There is no mystery to turning pro. It's a decision brought about by an act of will. We make up our mind to view ourselves as pros, and we do it. Simple as that. And that's what I look for a person on their weight loss journey. Have you just made the committed decision to yourself that you're going to be successful? Again, all I got to do is talk to you for an hour and a half, and it'll be abundantly clear if you've made the committed decision or not. Now, understand, you're going to have to make that committed decision many, many times. That's why I talk about in the Gill with a framework where I take people through something called Success Mountain. One of the aspects of Success Mountain is the recommit point. I know you're going to have to recommit, but when I say recommit, I'm talking not some mamby-pamby wussy commitment like if the stars line up and it's kind of easy, I'm going to go do it then. No, that's how amateurs talk. Professionals go, now I'm going to do it. I'm doing it now. Is it a convenient time? What does that have to do with anything? What does a convenient time have to do with anything? Amateurs wait for it to be convenient. Professionals just make it work because they're not going to wait around for life to let them have their dream. No, no, no. Being a pro with weight loss is a state of mind. Now, I'm worried that I may have misled some of you in the other episode, and you think that it's a checklist that you've turned pro. Don't get me wrong. I would be looking at your actions to see if you've turned pro, if you've truly taken your weight loss journey seriously, but your motives matter. Like your motives 100% come into the formula of determining if you have become a pro at this. What I want to do is I want to go through the War of Art, a few more sections of this, speaking specifically about the Turning Pro section. This is not endorsed. This isn't sponsored or anything. I really want to encourage you to go pick up a copy of the War of Art. And I'm not going to give you an affiliate link or anything. I believe in the book enough. I think you should go buy it. It's a simple, easy weekend read. It's easy to digest in small chunks. It's a great reread. I have just been thumbing through this book now for a couple of years, and I absolutely love it. I truly wish I had discovered it on my journey because I felt at a certain point like my journey was work. I've had people tell me, Chris, my weight loss is feeling like a part-time job. It's because it is. And your life is a part-time job. I mean, like, is that a problem, though? Like, I don't know. I'm not seeing the problem with that. But some people talk about it like it's a problem. And I suppose maybe the reason why they say that is because it's a part-time job, it takes time and it takes a lot of work to get things done. And because it takes a lot of work, you start to see this is like a project. And I loved the project, but projects still have work. They still have resistance. It still takes effort. And your mindset will wane. I mean, while I loved it, there were certainly days and weeks where I struggled. And having a book like this to come back to, be like, no, let me get my mind right. Because just because you've turned pro doesn't mean you can't backslide into being an amateur. Yeah, you totally can. You can totally retire from being pro and then go and turn pro again. That is a thing. All right. Before we jump into the book, though, I want to invite you to come join my free Facebook group. You can find a link to that by going to christerrellcoaching.com, and there's a link to it in the show notes. Also, if you are a Spotify listener, if you look down in your show notes section, you can pull out your phone, do it right now if you're able to, you can leave a comment. If you don't mind, could you let me know what you think of this episode so far? If you're a Spotify listener, just go ahead and leave a comment there. I'll read it and I'll publish it. If you see it's published, that means I've read it. And I read all of them, and I really love getting them. And if you're an Apple podcast listener, I would love to get a 5-star review, but I want to earn that review first. So do me a favor, give me several listens if you're new here, and let me get a chance to earn that 5-star review from you. But I would love it if you would give a rating and a written review. That truly does help get the podcast in front of more people. All right. So with that out of the way, let's jump into this. So I'm going to be going to this first section on page 81. On page 81. A professional plays it as it lays. Now, I'm going to read this, and then I'm going to talk about how this would apply to weight loss. My friend, the Hawk, and I were playing the first hole at Prestwick in Scotland. The wind was howling out of the left. I started an 8-iron 30 yards to windward, but the gale caught it. I watched in dismay as the ball sailed hard right, hit the green going sideways, and bounced off into the cabbage. Son of a bitch! I turned to our caddy. Did you see the wind take that shot? He gave that look that only Scottish caddies can give. Well, you've got to play the wind now, don't you? Sorry, I'm not even going to try to impersonate a Scottish accent there, but I can hear it in my head. The professional conducts his business in the real world. Adversity, injustice, bad hops and rotten calls, even good breaks and lucky bounces, all comprise the ground over which the campaign must be waged. The field is level, and the professional understands only in heaven. Now, what this means is, if it's a golf term, when you hit that golf ball, there's a term, it's play it as it lays. Wherever the ball is, that's where you have to hit it. What happens if your ball lands behind a tree? Like, you literally can't hit it towards the hole. You play it as it lays. Now, an amateur golfer picks up the ball and tosses it somewhere else and hits it from there. I'm an amateur golfer. I'm not even really an amateur golfer. I tell people it's taken me years to become a truly terrible golfer. But yeah, an amateur picks it up and throws it over there. But the professional, nope. They play it where it lays. So if that ball rolls off down into the thickest of the roughest of roughs, well, so be it. You play it where it lays. And this is what I meant earlier about turning pro. A pro understands that, yeah, just because there's ideal conditions now, that doesn't mean there's going to be ideal conditions 2 weeks from now. I mean, odds are there won't be. There's going to be a bad bounce. There's going to be something happens that you didn't see coming that's just going to come up and mess up your plan. I mean, the professional recognizes that. And because the professional recognizes that, the professional goes, well, if it's difficult now, then it'll just be easier when it gets easy. The hard times don't last forever. You've got to just look at life and go, I'm turning pro. And when am I going to turn pro? I don't know. I'm just going to do it right now. So let's turn now to page 82. A professional is prepared. I'm not talking about craft. That goes without saying. The professional is prepared at a deeper level. He is prepared each day to confront his own self-sabotage. The professional understands that resistance is fertile and ingenious. It will throw stuff at him he has never seen before. The professional prepares mentally to absorb blows and to deliver them. His aim is to take what the day gives him. He is prepared to be prudent and prepared to be reckless, to take a beating when he has to and to go for the throat when he can. He understands that the field alters every day. His goal is not victory, but to handle himself, his insides, as sturdily and steadily as he can. You'll notice right away, here again it says, his aim is to take what the day gives him. Professionals don't let circumstance dictate forward progress. Amateurs let success be determined by conditions. Amateurs go, I had a special event today. Guess I'm not going to be successful. That's how amateurs talk. Professionals say, how am I going to be successful and go to this special occasion? That's how professionals talk. Again, I just got to sit and listen to you talk. You'll either talk like a professional or you'll talk like an amateur. And if you talk like a professional long enough, you'll eventually become one because you're not going to let yourself lie to yourself for too long. You'll either stop saying it so you'll be congruent again, or you'll change your behavior so you can become congruent again. So that's what I've learned. You can't fake being a professional for very long because you'll just stop talking that way. But here's this most important part of this section. He is prepared each day to confront his own self-sabotage. You're your biggest enemy to success. I know many people on a weight loss journey like to blame it on friends. They like to blame it on family. They like to blame it on their job. They like to blame it on special occasions. They like to blame it on some health thing. Nah, it's your own dang brain that is going to be the number one hindrance to your success. Because who do you think is going to solve all these problems? You. And if your mind ain't right, you're not going to go solve them. You're not going to go solve them. And one of the challenges that many people have with weight loss, the difference between an amateur and a professional is, you know what? Let me just read the next section and then we'll get into what the difference is. This is on page 85. Tiger Woods is the greatest golfer in the world, yet he has a teacher. He works with Butch Harmon, and Tiger doesn't endure this instruction nor suffer through it. He revels in it. It's his keenest professional joy to get out there and practice tee with Butch to learn more about the game he loves. Tiger Woods is the consummate professional. It would never occur to him, as it would to an amateur, that he knows everything or can figure everything out on his own. On the contrary, he seeks out the most knowledgeable teacher and listens with both ears. The student of the game knows that the level of revelation that can unfold in golf, as in any art, are inexhaustible. This section right here is a big thing that lets me know if you're an amateur or if you've turned pro. If you are saying you're going to do it all yourself and you don't think you need to go learn anything, you're an amateur and a hack. All right? Because you see, the professional knows I can't do it all myself. Listen to this right here. I love how he worded this here. Let's see. Here we go. It would never occur to the professional that the professional knows everything or can figure everything out on his or her own. So consider that. If you think you know everything, or if you think you can figure everything out on your own, that's a sign you're an amateur. And if you refuse to get help when you clearly need help, you're an amateur. You're not a professional. I'm an entrepreneur. I love being an entrepreneur. One of the things that helps me tell if a person's got it or not, and I'm learning because all my entrepreneurs ahead of me taught me this, is who's your teachers? Do you have teachers and mentors? I've had teachers and mentors my whole life. I have them now. I have had them the entire time I've been working for myself, outside of if I'm in between and I'm left one mentor and I'm searching for my next. I've discovered the key to getting through life is getting help, getting advisors. It's really, really important to do that. And you have to build your team around you. It's up to you to build your team. So let's go to page 94 here. A professional recognize her limitations. Oh, by the way, the section heading of that last one is the professional doesn't hesitate to ask for help. So now if we jump ahead to page 94, a professional recognize her limitations. She gets an agent. She gets a lawyer. She gets an accountant. She knows she can only be a professional at one thing. She brings in other pros and treats them with respect. Your weight loss quest, look around you. Who's on your team? Is your doctor on your team yet? Is your mental health professional on your team yet? Do you need a weight loss coach? Do you have an OSP group? That's your only supportive people network. Do you have a team of those people around you? Do you have a nutritionist in your back pocket if you have nutrition questions? Do you have access to a personal trainer if you're at least somebody that's really into fitness that you can go to for fitness-related questions? Your job is to become the subject matter expert on you. Your job is to turn pro on being you. You don't need to learn everything. You don't need to be an expert in biomechanics to be good at exercise for yourself. If you have questions, go find the expert that studies that. Like it is my full-time job to study weight loss, specifically for chronic obesity. I know much more about it than the average person, right? There's people that know a lot more than me, like a lot more than me. But there's also a lot of people that know a lot less. But here's the thing. I'm willing to bet I know a lot more than you. So what I'm saying is you should be asking for help. And if you don't have to do it from me, do it from somebody. I don't care who you're asking for help from. What I'm saying is ask for help. If you are struggling with your weight loss journey, go find someone who's an expert in weight loss. And that is not someone else who's 300 pounds. If they are not on the other side of the journey, I would be very cautious and I would vet any advice I was given. I'm not saying it's not accurate advice. The problem is, for every one person that is still big that's giving you actual good advice, there are 10 others that will give you bad advice masquerading as good advice. And you don't know which is which because they all confidently believe what they're saying. And so it's up to you to go validate and verify. But if the person has the results that you are looking for, there's at least a higher degree of possibility that what they're telling you has a chance of working. Again, you should still vet that. I don't want you to take anything I'm saying at face value. If it makes sense for you, great, but I hope that you're going and validating yourself. I hope you're doing additional experimentation with your own life, right? Don't take my word for things. Go test me. Go be like, all right, I tried what Chris said. It didn't work. Okay, great. Now you know it doesn't work for you. Move on. Try something else. Or I tried what Chris said and it worked. Great. You know what works for you. You know this thing works for you in this situation. Continue on. But you must recognize that you have limitations. And an amateur is going through life assuming they don't have any limitations. Or they're assuming they're nothing but limited. They can't do anything, right? They also take the helpless thing. But we're not going to get into the helpless part. I think we can all tell a helpless mentality is not a professional mentality. But I want to talk about another thing that tells me if a person's turned pro or not. This is a weird one. So let me read it, and then let me explain why it's a weird one. It's on page 83, and the section is, a professional does not show off. A professional's work has style. It's distinctively his or her own. But she doesn't let her signature grand stand for her. Her style serves the material. She does not impose it as a means of drawing attention to herself. This doesn't mean, however, that the professional doesn't throw down a 360 tomahawk jam from time to time just to let the boys and girls know she's still in business, right? All right. So one of the things that I look at, have you made the mental switch or not, is, are you grandstanding for your successes and your failures? Or are you not showing off? Keep in mind, oh, look at my big failure that I did. That's you showing off your failure. You're being a show off, right? Look at this. So it explains my lack of results. Because of this, I'm helpless. Because of this, I can't do anything. Like, that's still showing off. You're just showing off your negative. What you're doing speaks so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying. There's a phrase my dad introduced me to when I was 19, and he said it to me for 20 some odd years after that. I decided to take that philosophy and bring it to my weight loss journey. What you're doing speaks so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying. What I told myself is, don't tell people I'm losing weight. Let the work speak for itself. It'll be evident. It'll be apparent. And so I stopped talking about it to people outside of my OSPs. I had OSPs and I talked to them. But if you weren't in my OSP group, I did not talk to you about my dream. You didn't deserve it. You had to earn the right to hear about my dream. But I mean, I wasn't going to be able to keep it a secret. You were going to see that I was getting skinnier. But I loved it. People hadn't seen me in 6 months. Have you lost weight? I have. Now, don't get me wrong. On the inside, I was secretly like, please ask me about it. Please ask me about it. I want to talk about it so much. Please ask me about it. I've worked so hard on this. I really want to talk about it. You have no idea all the sacrifices I've made to do this. On the inside, I wanted to do that. But on the outside, I was stoic. Because I kept telling myself, I'd hear that voice saying, come on, let's tell everybody about it. We're so excited. And I would be like, no, we've done that before. We're doing this for us. We're not doing it for the reward. But inside, my brain's like, come on, let's talk about it. Nope. No, we don't talk about it. Let the weight loss speak for it. They already noticed. That's all you needed. And you're not doing this for them. You're doing this for you. I'd have to sit there and just continually talk to that voice. Now, the cool thing is, after enough time, eventually that voice really got quiet and eventually the voice went away. And now it's a whisper. And a lot of times it's not even there at all. But it took time. I had to really talk that voice down for years. Let me say that again. I had to talk that voice down for years. Hold on. I'm really thinking some of y'all aren't listening. The voice, I want to talk about my weight loss and get all the rewards, and I had to tell it to back down. I had to tell it to back down for years, plural, before it backed down. Years. Now, some of you are like, Chris, why are you emphasizing this so much? Because some of y'all keep thinking your brain is going to change in 3 months. You're like, I've been doing it a long time, Chris. I've been doing it 3 months. You amateur. No, you haven't. That's not a long time. That's rookie numbers. Come back when you've been working on something about yourself consistently for 2 years. Now you get to brag. And by then, you shouldn't want to brag because you're probably realizing the bragging doesn't help. The bragging doesn't help. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about not celebrating. I'm not vilifying celebration. I'm talking about celebrating for the purposes of receiving people saying, ooh, look how amazing you are, so that you will give yourself an emotional boost. I'm talking about using them to supplement your own need for attaboy, attagirl, that you're not giving yourself. No. You need to be completely motivated by your own attaboys and your own attagirls. That needs to be where it's at. The professional doesn't do this for other people. The professional does it for themselves because you decided it needs to happen. The thing I've learned about creation, as being a creator now for years, is the best creations are the ones that I have made, are the ones that I made purely because I just believe it needs to exist in the world. That's it. And you know what happens? Sometimes it gets views, sometimes it doesn't. And I just don't care because I believe it needed to exist. This podcast is one of the things. What keeps me coming every week to keep doing this podcast is because I believe it needs to exist. I believe it needs to be here. I don't obsess about the metrics. I don't check them all the time. Sometimes I'll go a month and not even look at them, the metrics. All I look at is, what's the next episode? What's the last few topics I've talked about? What are people talking about? What do I think they need? And I'm listening to the chatter going on. I'm like, what's something I could talk about that I think that'll resonate with a lot of people? That's all I'm thinking about. I'm not thinking about anything else most of the time. And you know what happened with my weight loss? I learned this from my weight loss journey. I'm not doing this to, I can't wait till everybody tells me great job. Don't get me wrong. I wanted that in the beginning. I did. I truly did. But I had to let it go. And I let it go right away, but I still wanted it. Like, I let go of the behavior. It was a while before I could let go of the internal desire. That took some time. And every time I caved to the desire, it made it take that much longer to have the desire go away. So I hope this episode has caused you to think of some things in a new way, a little bit, with regards to turning pro and being an amateur. It's a state of mind. It's not a destination that you get to. It's not a checklist that you have to complete and then you can be like, okay, now I'm pro. It's just something you recognize when you're there. And I'm going to read just a couple more sections here from the book and we're going to wrap up here. I'm going to read about where the book talks about resistance, because resistance is what's going to stop you from turning pro. It's the resistance is what's going to stop you from making the changes in your life you need to make. So we're going to go way back in the book to page 9. Resistance is insidious. Resistance will tell you anything to keep you from doing your work. It will perjure, fabricate, falsify, seduce, bully, cajole. Resistance will assume any form if that's what it takes to deceive you. It will reason with you like a lawyer or jam a 9mm in your face like a stick-up man. Resistance has no conscience. It will pledge anything to get a deal, then double-cross you as soon as your back is turned. If you take resistance at its word, you deserve everything you get. Resistance is always lying and always full of shit. Let me tell you, this resistance is going to show up in your life when you're going for the body and life of your dreams. And you've probably felt it. Some of you may be feeling it right now. You need to know where this is coming from. Where is the resistance? Because I need you to turn and face it so you can make it go away. Let's go back a page to page 8. Resistance seems to come from outside ourselves. We locate it in spouses, jobs, bosses, kids, peripheral opponents, as Pat Riley used to say when he coached the Los Angeles Lakers. So consider that. You will often say, the reason why I can't be successful is because of my spouse. The reason I can't be successful is because my kids are my eating buddies. The reason why I can't be successful is because my work makes me take all these special occasions. The reason why I can't be successful is because of this thing outside of me. That's what resistance is saying. That's resistance talking. So let me finish this section. Resistance is not a peripheral outside of you opponent. Resistance arises from within. It is self-generated and self-perpetuated. Resistance is the enemy within. Resistance is the enemy within. One more section right here. Henry Fonda was throwing up before each stage performance, even when he was 75. In other words, fear doesn't go away. The warrior and the artist live by the same code of necessity, which dictates that the battle must be fought anew every day. Your weight loss journey is going to be riddled with fear. It's not going to go away. There's never is going to be a time where there's no fear. That's not in the cards. And you're not the exception to that. It will always be there. What has to change is how you respond to fear, how you handle it. And I love the line here where it says, live by the same code of necessity, which dictates that the battle must be fought anew every day. Your weight loss journey needs to just be necessary in your mind. Getting to the body and life of your dreams must be a necessity. It just must be what it is. What are you doing? I'm going for the body of my dreams. Why? Because I have to. Why? Because I decided I have to. If you make a committed decision, sometimes that's all you need. Sometimes that's all that is needed. Why are you doing this? Because I said I was going to. Anything else? Sure, I got a lot of other reasons, but I'm doing it because I said I was going to. Everything else is just to help me do it because I said I was going to. It's so important. This fear is not going to go away. And because it's not going to go away, that means resistance is not going to go away, because that is what resistance is using. Resistance wants to stop you from turning pro. Resistance wants to stop you from turning pro. It wants, under no circumstances, for you to look at yourself in the mirror and say, I am about to take this seriously. I am about to take this seriously. Because resistance knows the moment you start edging yourself towards taking this seriously, that means you are becoming closer to turning pro. And when you turn pro, resistance has less of an effect on you. It will still be there and will still have an effect on you, but it knows that you have just leveled up your character. When you've turned pro, you now have begun to unlock the trait of courage, and you're letting courage begin to come into your life and dictate the choices that you make instead of being completely ruled by fear. All right, we're going to wrap up here. If you'd like to pick up this book, you can find it anywhere. Seriously, just go to any bookstore, go on to Amazon, The War of Art by Steven Pressfield. And if you would like to get some additional support on your journey to help push you through resistance and get to the next level, one of the best ways you can do that is to surround yourself with what I've been referring into this episode today is an OSP network, only supportive people. Because I did learn it is important to talk to people about your journey. It's important that you're not crippled by the effects of isolation that often is found on a weight loss quest. You might try to find an accountability partner in your real life. Come on, lose weight with me. But the reality is that won't work more than likely. Many of you've probably already experienced that not working because you're both not motivated by the same things, and your journeys are going to progress at different rates, and you're going to need to focus on different things. The reality is your weight loss quest must be completed alone. You have to do it alone. You have to do it alone. But that doesn't mean you have to be alone. That doesn't mean you have to be unsupported. You have to do the work. But that doesn't mean we can't walk alongside you to help you do it. And if you're looking for a supportive army of people to walk alongside you, to encourage you each and every single day, and to provide you with all the knowledge and wisdom necessary to get yourself to the end of your quest, then you need to head on over to theguildofchampions.com. I'd love to tell you a little bit more about my program, where you can find yourself that OSP group that you have been looking for this entire time, and you can find access to all of the information you need to help you overcome resistance in your life and actually make it to the end of your quest, where you will find the body of your dreams. All right, I'll see you next week on the Chris Terrell Podcast. Talk to you later.